So let's talk tuna. How many people in here like to fish tuna?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why isn't everyone's hands up? I said, how many people in here like to fish tuna?
Lots.
Yay, okay, cool. So this is a list that I've assembled. I've kind of poached from Steve Carson and poached with some of the long range boats and different outfits of how I like to bring the amount of rods and the gear for trips, right? Is 6 rods too many rods on a 2-day trip? Hell no, I bring 11. But if you were to only bring 6, these are the 6 that I would bring, right? I just like to have backup. How many people have been sawed off a fish?
Yeah.
How many people have been sawed off a fish right after that? Just me?
Where are you fishing? Free school.
I just like having a backup, especially when we're fishing the heavy stuff, when we're fishing the 100 pounds and the 80 pound setups. If we're on these big fish and you want to not be sitting there all shaky and like, excuse my language, but fuck, I just lost the biggest fish of my life, because the ones you don't catch is always the biggest fish of your life, right? Right?
Yes.
Okay. Catching the biggest fish of my life. Okay. I want to just grab another rod that's ready to rock right then and there. I don't want to have to sit and tie it and be like, oh shit, is my knot good? Is the knot that made it happen this time? Is it somebody with the green braid that maybe gets sawed off? What happened? Right? I want to be ready to rock. That's why I bring 11 rods. Is it overkill? Sure. So, outfits. How I would like to start is usually with a smaller outfit. I'm going to call this my 20 to 30 pound stick for right now, because I didn't want to bring one of my 10-foot rods. A 7 to 9 foot rod's kind of ideal if you want to be a nuisance like I am and stand on the bait tank and cast over everybody. Big rods, light line, 40 pound, ideally. I like to pair it with an SX Raptor. I may or may not be a little biased. Nice small profile, easy to maneuver around, able to pull on big fish with. That little reel that someone's going to walk out with tonight is going to have 14 pounds of drag. That's perfect for 30 pound, 40 pound braid. You don't want to have more than that. Otherwise, it's just going to be overkill. For those smaller plunker bluefin that we're seeing, that when you see them blowing up in the distance and you think it's these 200-pound fish and you roll up on them and it's the never-ending question, do bluefin spawn in Southern California? Yeah, they do. They're like 6 to 20 pounds, the small ones right now. I saw some that I thought were bonita. They were bluefin. So what I would recommend with something like this on a 20 to 30 pound setup, depending on the size of the sardines, anchovies, I would use like a 1/0 ringed hook, a J hook if there's yellowtail in the mix. That's another thing too. When you're fishing these lighter setups, tuna aren't too line shy. Yellowtail are, unless you're down south. But what we have here in the waters are people that are fishing 40-pound fluoro are not going to get bit. You got to fish that 30-pound. You got to fish that 25-pound if you want to consistently stay on the chew. Again, you want to have more rods because you are going to get sawed off. You're going to get bit through. That's okay. That's why you brought double the amount of gear that you need, right? Right? Right. Thanks, Bob.
Wrong lure at the right time.
So, yeah. So for this one, this is going to be something that you can throw those little Colt snipers. You can throw smaller little tatties if you have it. If you just want to chuck a sardine, you want to chuck a chovy, you want to chuck a baby mackerel. That's the way to do it. Is with this light setup. An Avid SX Raptor ideally. Or whatever brands y'all like to go with. Shimano, Daiwa, Penn. The Penn Fathom 8, Fathom 10, sweet little reel. I love them. Not as much as these, but they're great. Okay? Next step up from that is going to be your 40-pound fly line stick. When we're getting into that mixed grade bluefin, those 20 to 60-pound fish, some of the yellowtail are going to be around. The type of fish that you're going to have to start worrying about sharks potentially in that area, right? You want to have something that is going to have the casting ability but also the pulling ability. I personally like to use light line on big fish. Why? I don't know. I guess I like pain. But it is what it is. I put 40-pound braid on all my backing of that size, mid-size, smaller to mid-size reel. Avid MXJ, MXL is kind of perfect, and SX is also a good platform. Nice and low profile. It's going to be easy to grab onto and cast around. For my top shot, I'm going to probably use 20-pound, 25-pound. Most people would recommend going 40, maybe even 50. You can. If it's getting bit, by all means, use it. Okay? But if it's not, go light. Worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to tie up another and you're going to catch a fish before anybody else does. Chances are the lighter line is going to get hit first. But you need to have the beef behind it to catch the fish. Does anyone want to see this type of profile? Anyone want to feel a really nice setup?
Yeah.
Yeah, here. There you go. Show and tell. Remember, it's an 8.5 foot rod. Okay. Next stick up. 50-pound setup. This would be an Avid JX to LX series. This is going to be like a mid to larger size reel with a thinner profile. Something like this is going to have a ton of drag. It's going to have tons of crank. It's going to have tons of line. But it's also going to free spool very, very nicely. You can cast a lure. You can chuck a sardine. You can chuck a mackerel. You're going to have a couple of options of what you can do. It's the only one that's a real ability to kind of be in the mix. If no one's getting bit on a sardine, throw a lure. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're not going to get bit like everybody else is. Try something different. Switch it up. When everyone's at the stern, that's not exciting. I would rather be up chucking something at the bow, right? I don't know how many of y'all have fished with me, but I'm not a very patient fisherman, even though fishermen are supposed to be patient.
Look out! What's the drag? What's the drag on an HX?
On the JX, this one's going to have 37 pounds of drag at full and about 29 at strike on a JX LX series. On an HX Raptor, 40 pounds of drag at strike, 50 at full. Don't use heavy braid on that if this is going to be the setup, because you're going to over drag yourself and you're going to get nailed. And it's not going to be fun.
JX Raptor's such a beast.
Thin profile.
Nice.
Still heavy.
Pretty.
Feel the weight. That's the type of setup that you want to have.
Yeah, right.
You want to be able to cast it, but also still pull on it.
We'll get some water.
Remember, these fish now are a bigger sized fish. They're tuna. They're not halibut. They fight. Pull. I'm a 200-pound tuna. I'm like a 240-pound tuna. I gotta relax on the cheese. All right?
There's a lot there.
There's a lot there. You want to have a rod that's going to have a good backbone, but it's also going to be a fast rod. You want to have a lot of action. So I recommend, if you don't want to spend the money on, a Seeker on a United Composites, get the Okuma PCHs and the other ones, the other carbon fiber ones. Not Daiwa. Is it Daiwa? Yeah, the Proteus. Proteus rods. Great for the $300 round. 8-foot rods. They're medium and also fast. They have some length. They have good guides. I'm a big proponent of the aluminum reel seat. I know some people swear that it doesn't give the flexibility and the parabolic blend and the rod, blah, blah, blah. In California, it's safe to say that every person in here besides for Keith is going to be putting this rod on that rail.
Yeah.
Right? And it's going to be cranking. It doesn't matter having the parabolic blend here with a graphite reel seat. You want to kill a fish, right? Meat fisherman, Bruce? Get off your phone. You want to be a meat fisherman? Feel like you're in school yet? Okay. Next stick. Does anyone want to see this? No?
Of course.
Bigger is better.
Here. Show and tell.
Anybody
There you
want
go.
to see this?
You already said that rod's not for him.
Oh no, the rod is for him. That's the thing. All these rods, you can pull this butt right off and throw it into your fighting belt if you want to. That's why I make all my rods like this. These are all my custom rods. If you guys want to see what Pete does with magic, Pete made these rods, all these blue rods that you're looking at. All right, next step up, that 60 pound, really the 50 to 80 pound class is what you're gonna wanna fish with this on a 60 pound braid, 6'6" to 8 foot. I said 8'6" for some people that like to have a little bit more rod. I personally like to have this, 7'6" style setup. It's enough for you to be able to pull on the fish and then also rail the fish if you need to, right? If you're gonna be just putting this rod on the rail at this, sorry, first, because you need to really beef it up then. I would stick to trying to keep it under your arm so that you can have a little bit more pull before you drop it down onto that rail, because once you put it onto that rail, you're not gonna have the same pump like you would with a proper rail rod for these yellowtail. You guys were on the long range, right? How are the yellowtail kicking your ass down the rocks?
They were stubborn.
Right?
Stubborn.
And those were what, 20 to 40 pound fish?
Yeah.
50 pound fish?
I don't know if it was in 50.
Yeah, 40.
Were you
Yeah.
fishing like 80 pound setups on them?
60.
60?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this setup,
Yeah.
essentially. You want to be able to have something that's going to be able to cast, right? You want to be able to have some free spool. What I like about the Abbots is that they have the tension control, the magnetic cast control. So you can adjust it. This is on the lightest setting. Then you can slow it down if you want to. When you're throwing a heavier lure, if you're throwing like a Tatty PDQ, or if you're throwing, even a sinker rigged sardine, you want to have options for something like that. But when you're throwing a Tatty 45, you want to be able to have a good mix of the two. A quick way to fix it without having to switch out your entire rig is to fish a reel that has the tension control on it, right? I'm playing the big game, whatever, we'll pass them around. Light surface irons get big on tuna, don't they? Who can attest to that?
Baby Dorado.
Look up.
Yeah, KB Mondi?
Just hook them. You'll get his attention.
Yeah. I like that. Right? When you're throwing surface irons, it's going to be like you're throwing a light sardine. When you're throwing yo-yos, it's going to be like you're throwing a sinker rig. That's how I like to think of it for each different setting, right? When you're throwing something light like that, it's going to have more action. So you want to have more action in your rod. When you're just throwing a heavy ass jig, it doesn't matter what you're throwing. You're just throwing a weight with a hook when you're throwing something like this,
Yeah.
right?
Come drop that on your toe.
Yeah, or do and remember not to. So that is probably the most universal setup that you'll use right now on the bluefin that we have here in Southern California. Who knows? Maybe you'll get a monster yellowtail. People are catching 40-pound yellowtail at San Clemente right now. Consistently.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like one fish. It's like every trip people are catching 30 to 40-pound yellowtail. You don't have to go down to the ridge anymore. You don't have to go down to the rocks and spend $4 grand on a long range. They're right here. Overnight boats are doing it, right? Believe it or not, guys, and you're gonna hate on it, I'm sure, because it's weird and unorthodox. This lure right here,
Squid track.
this Squid Trex lure in Nomad, when I was on my Intrepid trip, I caught 8 yellowtail above 40 pounds on this. On this. So if you guys are throwing, different things like that, I've been throwing these guys. These are the new Mad Max. These are the mini Mad Max.
Yeah.
It's different than a popper because it's got a little bit of depth to it. It's gonna swim at like 12 to 15 feet below the surface. So you can chuck it out there as far as you can and just wind it. Wind.
Nice.
And if you're gonna get bit, you're gonna get bit. Throw it 3 times. If it doesn't work, change the color. Change to a different lure, right? You will know immediately with these things. If they're not eating this, it's because they're feeding on those microbaits. I was just out this past weekend for 4 days. The only way I could have caught a bluefin was if I swam in the water and stuck a hook in the fucker's mouth. They would not bite. I saw foamers for 4 days pulling up on them. It was the most aggravating tuna fishing I've ever had in my life. And especially when everyone's calling, yeah, we just hooked up and landed a 150 pounder in 10 minutes. We didn't have the kite up. right? If you're not flying the kite, you gotta be changing things and making it exciting and trying different stuff. Lures, weird looking lures like that. Not so weird looking lures, but new, like this. Irons, sardines, whatever it may be.
Did that come like that, or did you have to re-rig the hooks?
Bone stock. They fix the hooks.
Can I order one of these? Where do I go?
I will tell you guys how to get them. Go to any tackle shop, and they have them. Every tackle shop will stock squid sharks of all the different sizes. They're cool looking. Cold snipers, or something of sorts. 80 gram, up to 110 grams is what I would recommend. Anything above that, unless you're, really knowing how to cast, you're gonna bird nest. It's just gonna happen because they go a lot farther than you think that they will. I love these. You have to change the hooks on them. If you don't change the hooks to a 2-aught, 4X treble, you're gonna get your jig back and you'll be like, huh, there was a fish on here. Where'd my hook go? Pulled, broken, gone. You have to change the hooks on these. Most people recommend changing the hooks on the Mad Max, changing the hooks on some of the Tatties if they're older. Be mindful of your gear, guys. Some believe in superstitions, some believe in little stitions, whatever it may be, right? Everyone has a preference on tackle. Personally, I only use Izerline because I've been chewed through so many different types of Power Pro and J-Braid and all that other stuff, right? Some of y'all might hate Izerline. Use what you know and what you like. But if you're not landing fish, remember that your opinion doesn't matter. Use what is working. Okay? Next size up, let's start getting into some real rods. Real rods. So when we're on
My turn.
when we're on those big fish on the daytime and you are getting absolutely obliterated on everything, so
That is pin shot.
I personally like to use an Avid HXJ, HX regular, or HX wide when we're on the heavy fish. You're not casting all too far. So because you're not casting all too far, I'm going to hand this over here to you just for poops and giggles for a second. Hang on to that. Okay, and I'm going to come back over here.
There you go.
What are you guys noticing about this line?
Change the color.
Multicolored through the pole.
That too.
Thick,
You see the color?
rainbow.
Metered braid, guys. If you are not marking your line, or you are not finding a way to know the depth of the line,
Depth indicator.
don't pull the Jeff Morris. It works for him sometimes, but God knows how much better it would work. He says, just drop it until you're bit. And it works 1 out of 10 times. But when the skipper says, okay guys, they're at 250 feet. This changes color every 25 feet. Okay. That means I only need to count it to 10 different colors. Cool. Green, orange, blue, yellow, green, 100 feet. Orange, yellow, blue, whatever the color combination is, right?
Nice. That's cool.
So you know. That's with this Jerry Brown 25. Every 25 feet it's metered. For Izerline and most of the other brands, every 100 feet it changes color. So on that 100-foot mark, find the middle point and mark it at the 50 with a black Sharpie or whatever it may be, so you know. Okay? That is critical when you're knife jigging and you're getting on these big fish. Ted and I have done some good knife jigging last year. This year it's not as productive. Not even that it's not as easy, but what I like to do that's a bit different than everybody else, and people are just like, oh, it's such a big reel. It's like that. It's never a big reel when it pulls the fish in quick, right? It's always cool to catch a big fish on light tackle and light line, but nothing's cooler than pulling in 6 200-pound fish by the time someone's halfway through their first one. Skip the bullshit, go to a 50. It's worth it. They're the same price as this. Sure, the drag is about the same. Sure, it's going to cost, you know, $300 or $400 more to fill it up with braid, but it's okay. You'll get over it. You'll spend a lot more on heartache and therapy losing your fish than you will on the extra braid. I don't know that for a fact, but if I was a guessing man. Right? This is a unnecessary amount of power. Right? But you don't see tow trucks towing with braid. You see them towing with cable, right? I personally fill most of my heavy stuff with 200-pound hollow core. Oh, that's not sportsman-like. Oh. It's above the IGFA 130-pound
Hollow core, a
class.
braid or a mono?
Hollow core braid. Right? Ray, check this out.
Hemingway.
Oh, fight the fish.
Stream.
No, stand up. Fight sitting down.
Damn.
You want me to start the pull?
No,
No?
I don't have a belt out, it hurts.
Yeah. Okay?
It's gonna go home look like he's
You can
cheating.
put a hurt on it.
I personally like to fish heavy sticks. 7'6". This is an 80 to 130 pound class rod with an ab at 50.
That's long.
7'6" is good to fight stand up though. You want to have a little bit of bounce. If you're gonna fish it on a 6'6" roller or like a 765 triple X Cowstar or a Seeker 1x3 or a 2x4 or whatever side-by-side combination you're gonna have with the Seeker. The reason that we have these broomsticks now is for one thing and one thing only: killing fish quick. If you want to be sporty, by all means, fight on the 50-pound rod. I'll see you in 2 hours.
Yeah, but is it really fair to set yourself up for a 2-hour fight on a boat full of people when they can't do anything at all when you're fishing?
That's why I'm saying do something like this. Have this ready to rock.
Yes.
Another thing about these big reels, guys, and another thing that a lot of people don't realize is how important the gear ratio is for the line retrieval for when you're doing a night fish or a kite fish.
Low gear matters.
Low gear matters, 2-speed is critical. If you're still fighting single speed reels, please leave them at home, put them on your memory shelf, look at them every day that you're not fishing. Don't fish with them. Okay? It's 2024. We have 3-speed reels, guys. Okay, this is a 3-speed. So we're gonna put it in gear and I'm gonna turn the clicker on so you see what's up.
Caroline,
Right.
what should we call
High speed, high gear. This is a 4-to-1 ratio with 47 inches on the crank. Mid gear, 2-to-1 ratio, 27 inches on the crank. Low gear, 1-to-1 ratio, 13 inches on the crank.
You can rig in an elephant at that speed.
Okay? For those of you that have hit me with the excuse that say, oh, I'm getting older, I don't want to pull on big fish. Cool. You're not pulling on a big fish, you're towing in it. It's a big difference. As long as you can physically stand and you have someone there to relatively support you, whether if you're in a fighting belt, sure, don't hold it onto the rail unless you want to see how buoyant your reel is. Watchmas, it's not. Fight it. Have fun. When you're on your boats, most of you guys here have your own boats. If you're on your boat, I mean, you can leave it in the rod holder, I guess,
Not nice.
Easy.
but
It's not
it's easy.
IGFA.
It's not IGFA.
It's not good for turning in the weight slip. If you can
Right.
keep your rod in the rod holder, don't submit a weight slip.
Objectively, hanging on to this for a few minutes, Bob.
This isn't a TV show.
What am I doing?
Fish-
Hold on.
You're hanging on, yeah.
Don't hurt Bob.
You could fight
Pretty
that,
stiff.
right?
What about it?
Could you fight a fish at that?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
No? What if we strap, what if we clip you in?
Huh?
What if we clip you in?
That would be a different story. I had 2 hands.
Okay?
To rod
There's a ton of options of what we have for tackle now, guys. You don't have to depend on those 10, 50 Ts anymore, single speed, with 21 pounds of drag. Someone's got 57 pounds of drag. Please don't button up to 57 pounds of drag. I don't want to hear the sob story of someone going overboard. Because it will happen. One of two things is going overboard on 57 pounds of drag. The rod and the reel, or the rod and the reel and you. Okay?
Yeah.
I don't care how strong and buff and tough you are, right? There's nothing like being humbled by the ocean and the creatures that live in it. Unless you leave it in the rod holder, then crank it all the way up. By all means, have a blast. We put our TRX 130 wide. So Keith Poe, the shark tagger guy that's out here, 300 pound mono, 300 pound braid, 300 pound mono. Bud the drag up to 187 pounds of drag before it snapped. 187 pounds of drag. You could probably pull a train with that. It's ridiculous. It's unnecessary. Please don't do that. To show you how strong this reel was when I was fishing with it, do you see this right here, Jerry?
Yeah.
Wait,
Bend
do you see that?
it. Yep.
I got tangled in someone else's rod. They were fighting over on the corner. I'm coming this way, going down the boat. They're over there. And they got their tip of their rod stuck by the tip of my rod. And I don't know how many of y'all have fished with me or not, but if you're getting tangled with me, one of two things is happening. You're losing your fish, or I'm getting pissed and you're losing your fish. And so I got pissed and the other person lost their fish and lost the tip of their rod. There is an eyelet wound into my line. How it happened, I have no idea. But if you don't believe it, there is an eyelet right there.
Acted like that.
See it?
You can show it to us.
See it? I did actually.
Yeah, I know, but that's
There's an eyelet in here. Okay? See it? I don't know how it happened. But it happened.
Did you over crank him or did you release the line and let it burn it out?
I landed my fish.
You don't do road rage, do you?
Don't mind the hair sticking out of his.
Every Tuesday and Thursday.
Yeah. Not today.
Rail rage.
Okay. Yeah, real rage is a real thing. Right? So that's for gear, guys. Let's talk about tackle. All right. Hooks. How many of you are using other hooks rather than J hooks and circle hooks? Show of hands. Right? We kind of figured it out by now. If you used anything besides Ramutu or an Aki twist or a offset J in Florida, you would be a madman. If you use a circle hook there, an offset circle hook, a ring circle hook, what are you doing? Blasphemy. Here, circle hooks, J hooks. If they're yellowtail, don't use a circle hook. Use a J hook. They set themselves. As much as you love ripping lips, when you're using a circle hook, don't rip a lip. I will lose every fish because that's my favorite thing in the world is in the mouth. Rip. Guess what you're getting? Your lure right back in your face. Right?
And maybe a lip.
And maybe a lip.
So-
that did happen.
Why rip a lip?
Why rip a lip? You want the fish. Because, Bruce, what are we?
Meat fisherman.
Some of us.
You can eat the lip.
You can eat the lip. It's just not as good. J hooks. I would go all the way down to a 2. 1, 1/0, 2/0, 3/0. Circle hooks. 1, 1/0, 2/0, 3/0, 4/0. Unless you're a madman like me and you bring your 50 wide and you catch a little 4-pound bonita and then you take one of these 8/0 rings and you stick a thread through and you wind it a bunch of times and send it back down and try to catch like a 100-pound shark or whatever goodies are down there, right? You don't need that. You're not catching tuna on this, probably. You're not putting it through a sardine's head, put it that way, on an 8/0 hook. I mean, you can, but you're going to kill your fish. And you're not going to catch anything. Treble hooks.
But those are what we got hanging off of some of our bigger knives, right?
Usually bigger than this. I'll get into that in
the
1
eight,
second.
yeah, that's what I meant.
So, treble hooks. You know how we fish stingers and trap hooks?
On
Has
a
anyone
halibut there.
on halibut rigs? Has anyone tried that on tuna before? No?
done it with lures.
We've done it with lures, right? Colt snipers typically will have them. Mad Max will typically have them. Most tatties are either single hook or
Flatfall.
flat falls. Yes, we'll get into knife jigs and
But you-
we'll get
but
into
you- but
big
you
jigs
need-
like
but
that.
you need a surgeon to remove the jig or go to the next one afterwards.
Yeah.
That's the only fish you're gonna catch with it.
And that's why you have an extra setup, because you can just hand it to the deckhand and say, here you go, have fun, and start fishing again. Right? Back to why you need 11 rods.
Yeah.
So, weights. Weights is a big thing. A lot of people love fly lining. You know, my favorite thing to do with a fly line is put a little 1/4 ounce or a 1/2 ounce egg sinker right on that, so it can just push it down and away from everybody. My favorite thing in the world is watching just turmoil happen at one of the corners of everybody. Your boat's swinging and there's a little bit of fly line going this way and a little bit going that way. One person catches one fish, and it usually is square dead center, right? And you know what that tuna turns into?
Hanger.
A bulldozer. And it's gonna go this way, and it's gonna hit all 6 of you this way, and it's gonna go that way, and it's gonna hit all 8 of you that way. And guess whose fault it is? Yours, not the fish's. Remember that, your rod, it's your fault. Okay? I like to put a little egg sinker on to get it down. If I'm gonna be an ass and get everybody tangled, I'd rather get like 1 or 2 people tangled instead of like 8 people tangled. I don't know how many of y'all have ever gone fishing on like the El Dorado or some of the, you know, the overnight boats here in LA. And there's always one guy that just like finds his spot at the rail, just won't budge.
Glued.
Glued, just stuck. Do you do that, Jerry?
Yeah, all the time.
Bring a chair.
Good. If you're gonna do it, bring a chair. But actually, right? If you're gonna be positioned in one spot, at least get away from everybody. Go down. I love using sinker rigs. That's my go-to. When everyone's fly lining and doing things, I'll do a 2 ounce egg sinker, and I'll tie like a little knot that won't bind should you get hooked up, just to keep it down. It's almost like an inline sinker, about 6 feet up from the hook. Otherwise, you're gonna use the rubber band and you're gonna put it, I would say 9 to 12 feet up on the line. So you're gonna have a sinker rig, but light. Fun fact, guys, not saying that it's gonna happen to y'all, but that's how I caught my Opa. We were fishing for tuna, and I drop a sinker rig down because it's the middle of the day, and we're marking fish at 250 to 300 feet. So I throw a 4 ounce sinker with a 3/0 circle hook with a sardine, and the second it gets to the zone, bit. On the way down, it got bit. Okay? You're not gonna fly line at 200 feet. It's not going to happen. I don't care if you butt hook it. I don't care if you talk to it and give it a pep talk and say, you swim down to the bottom of that ocean, fish. It's not gonna happen. Put a weight on it. Let gravity do the work. Be crazy if you want to. If you have mackerel on the boat, use a 12 to 16 ounce
Get it there.
sinker rig. Get it down. If you get down first, you get bit first. You know who's notorious for that? This guy. And I picked it up last year after fishing with Ted. When the skipper on the boat says, oh, they're at, 200 feet, drop down your 150, 180 gram jig. I'm gonna drop down my 350. Because guess who's there number 1? Still Ted, but I'm number 2. Okay? Because he's using the 400 while I'm using the 350. But that's okay.
What do you think about the shiny threads on the hooks as opposed to bare hooks?
I think that they're great for catching fishermen.
Uh-huh.
I've realized on so many trips that you could drop down, I should have brought it. Last year, I went to Goodwill and I bought a bunch of knives. Right? You get a box of knives for like $10. Drill a hole in them, put a split ring, solder it. Don't do a split ring, solder a ring, and drop it down. If it has some weight, chances are it'll probably get bit. It does not matter what you're using. Remember, at 400 feet in the nighttime, you think they're seeing this?
Yes, you see a little bit of sparkle, a little bit of shine.
Right here.
They're hearing
That's
it.
what I think.
Yeah.
Now, when you glow it up, maybe it's an angry squid, because everything in the ocean eats squid except for the tuna this past weekend, apparently.
And pelicans
And-
don't eat squid. Pelicans don't eat squid. I didn't know that.
Now we know that. Thank you, Bruce. I didn't know that.
Looking for squid, you see pelicans on the water, keep going.
Good to know. Knife jigs. I kind of skipped, but lures, yo-yos, surface irons, tatties, A2s, Salis, 6X, 7X for those heavier ones, PDQs, that super beefy one that's somewhere around. Casting, Colt snipers, poppers. I throw the fluke sometimes. Anything that has action, that wiggles and is not normal. If everyone's throwing a sardine, it's going to be bolting in one direction. They're going to be swimming towards one another. Like I said, I like throwing these Mad Max. They're cool. Don't throw a cedar plug. I've been trying to do it for 2 years now. I would love to catch a tuna on a hookup bait. It's been done, but people don't try it because it's not normal, right? If something's not working for everybody, try something that isn't normal, that isn't working. Okay?
So those big ones, I have a couple of those. Would you use a weight with that as well?
No, this is
Just
6
that by
ounces.
itself?
Chuck it out.
And how far can you get that down quickly?
Just let it sink. 6 ounces. I don't know. But
Throw
it's
it into
gonna
the
be
chum
directional.
line, just like you would a big hammer lure.
You're gonna want to throw that thing as far as possible.
Right, but not so much for the depth. So if they're at 400 feet, you don't want to use that.
Well, you got to think about it too, right? There's gonna be some sort of angle of declination with it. It's gonna be moving. It's a directional lure as opposed to throwing a sinker that's just gonna go boom, right? Because it has a direction, it's gonna kind of coast down. So what did I say a couple minutes ago about metered line?
Right.
If you know how much line you have out, you have an idea of kind of where you're at.
Yeah.
Right, by looking at it. It's like, okay, cool, it's 50 yards that way. You guys remember the Pythagorean theorem in school? A squared plus B squared equals C squared? No? All right, if you're throwing 50 feet that way and you have 200 feet of line out, chances are you're probably like 125 feet down. Quick math. Cool. Cool. All right, jigs. Even though it's not happening, it's going to happen by the time I'm sure we get on our tuna trips. Knife jigs. People swear by the butterflies and the SKs and the flutters and all that. You can do it and it works, but again, the first one down is the first one big, usually. Boom, drop it down. The skippers, more the mates this year, are getting pretty pissed off at people having the double rigs like this. Last year, I was on a big fish on this lure and absolutely annihilated this bait as soon as it got down. This hook caught it in the corner perfect. Both of these hooks caught right on the gill plate. How many of you have fought a tuna and caught it on the gill plate?
Sideways.
A lot of work.
A lot of work. What should have been a 15-minute fight on a 3-speed reel turned into a 2-hour ordeal. You can't turn the head. The only way I was losing that fish was when they missed the gaff, but that's okay. Shit happens. We got the fish back after another 15 minutes. If I didn't have these extra hooks in the side of its head, I would have lost that fish.
On tape.
On tape, on film, on 3 or 4 cameras. I still fish with them though.
Oh, the pain.
It was an honest mistake. People are doing the double on top or the double on the bottom. That's fine. If you want to catch the fish, that's fine. If you want to kill the fish, put a treble at the bottom. But the thing is when that comes plopping on the deck, make sure that people are aware. Say, hey, I'm an asshole. I left a treble hook at the bottom of that jig. So they know to take a step back. Because otherwise you're gonna get a 5/0 4X iron hook wedged into the side of their leg. And the only way that hook is getting out is by cutting it out. Okay? Not cutting you, cutting the hook and then pushing it through. Because it's going to set. You work in hospitals. Yeah. There's nothing like having to get tourniqueted up on a boat because of a hook. Don't do it. Okay?
You know what they've been saying is kind of interesting too. The new eddy bombs.
Yeah.
What they're saying is you can double hook those because they're not going to swing and go as wide.
Yep. They're not nearly as big.
Yeah, they're not as bad, but you can, if you wanna be sticking two sets of hooks on them, you can do it on those.
Yeah. But then you also need to remember one thing also, guys, is that when you have hooks on a jig, make sure these hooks can never touch.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's
One,
true.
because it's an IGFA rule, but two, also because they will get tangled on the way down. Not 100%, but like 95% of the time, they will. Okay? Metered line is critical, ideal, important, highly recommended. Is it a little bit more expensive? Yes. For those of you that, like I said, have fished with me, I'm a big buy once, cry once type of person. If you get good braid, it will last forever. Rip your top shot off every time you go, because you never know what it's gonna be. Except for like those cow setups. I'm gonna use a 200-pound wind on. That's just what I'm gonna do. Okay? If you don't have meter braid, mark your line. Mark your line on every setup. If you're fly lining, it's just good to know how much line you have out. Because, okay, I just let out 2/3 of my spool. I let out 200 yards of line. Guess what happens when you hook up that fish the second you start on the retrieve? You better make sure that you got enough pull on that. Otherwise, you're getting spooled because you already have 2/3 of your line out. Okay? Fluoro is important. I carry 12, 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 50, 60, 5, 80, 100, and then anything bigger than 100 I have wind-ons. Like I said, those of you that have gone fishing with me, you've seen, actually, probably felt my tackle bag. Unnecessary, sure. I would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Every boat that you guys get on, they will have good-ish backup stuff. Nothing's better than your own than what you
About
like.
4 times what you're gonna pay for it at the tackle shop.
Money doesn't matter. It's Disneyland at that point, right? So if you guys want to get the cheapest line that you can get, metered braid, go see Pete in Redondo.
Just
Okay.
fishing by Pete.
Just fishing by Pete. Pete he doesn't have any 200-pound, but he has 130-pound metered, he has 100-pound, 80-pound. So metered braid from Iserline is available in 30-pound, 65, 80, 100, 130, 150 in solid. In hollow, it's available in 80, 100, 135, and 200. Okay? Pete has all of them except for the 2 high ones on both ends. They are, I would say, half the price of anywhere else. If you're buying a new reel from a tackle shop, negotiate with them on the line. Everyone's got a little bit of wiggle room. I'm all about supporting local. Please, please, please take care of the braid that you're putting on your reels. It will last forever. It's a big buy once, cry once. If you're gonna get into a gnarly blow up on something and you don't wanna worry about it on the trip when you go home, one quick way to do it is to hook your line up to another reel and put that reel in not hot water but warm water and just let it sit and just crank that line out to get the memory out of it, if there is any memory on it. That's what I do very rarely, but if you need to, you can do that. Okay? Metered line always has wax on it. That's what the meter is. It's all white line that just has color that's applied to it when it goes through the machine and it changes. It's like a printer. It's a wax. That's why it's a waxier material, as opposed to just pure white braid or black. What's the black water, right? Was the black line? Mm-hmm. And then there's cord lane, forget what it is. J braid, the 8X is green and white, I believe. There's all sorts of colors. Please don't use green braid. Okay? Or if you do it on your boat,
Why?
because you can't see it.
Oh, solid green, the
So-
moss
yeah.
moss green,
Yeah.
not
the
chartreuse.
army green. When a company offers braid and it says green, it's that green. It's not like tennis ball. It's like can't see it green. Okay?
You
High
like
vis
messing
yellow
with
is
that?
good. What'd you say?
You like messing with that when you're the one hooking it out or tangling?
Remember that? Yeah, you don't. I do. By the way,
So high vis,
high vis, white, yellow,
chartreuse,
blue, red, pink. Who cares?
no moss,
No green.
no moss.
Black is
We're
better
very
than
good.
green. You can see the black line more than you can see the green line. You guys have any questions? Another thing, guys, when you're hooking up your jigs to your line, crimping. Okay, that's what I wanted to talk about tonight, but I didn't want to sit and test everything with you guys. I am a big proponent of being quick with everything. Everyone poo-poos it. I use a snap swivel at the end of. I use a snap swivel at the end of my line, and I'm gonna hook my jig right up, and I'm gonna switch it out to a different size or whatever I need to. I have never, ever, ever had an issue about using a snap swivel at the end of my line. Whereas people are like, no, 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 you have to tie it directly to there. Regardless of how you do it, the hookup to your rod, you do not want to hook it on the eyelet of the jig. Okay, does everyone see this? There's the actual, like the snap here that you can have. You're gonna have the connector here. Don't hook it up to here. The fish aren't eating the jig, they're eating the hook. If you, by all means, lose your $30 jig. Don't lose your 200-pound fish. Hook it up to the split ring, okay? Use a heavy split ring. They say, oh, you don't need more than 180-pound split ring. You're damn right I don't, but I'm still using 450-pound ones because I'm looking for that 450-pound bluefin out here. If it's a 180-pound one and I catch a 200-pound fish, that messes with the integrity of this. I can't trust it anymore. I want trustworthy gear. Spend the extra $1, okay? Hook it up to the actual split ring, not to the jig. Make sense?
Good tip.
Anyone have anything to add in? Silence?
How do you know what hooks off the shelf need to be upgraded?
Every single one of them. There's not one jig manufacturer that makes a good hook on their jig, besides for Nomad now. DKK triple X, quadruple X. I like to use the Mustad assist hooks, personally. Sharpen them. Yeah.
So why do you suppose jigs like flat falls fell out of favor? Is it because knife jigs are faster down, or?
So the theme of this year is people just discovered different metallics or different metals are denser than others. I was talking about it with Ted. A tungsten jig and the Eddie Bomb is the new thing, right? So a 16-ounce sinker like this weighs, I don't know, what is that math? What's math?
16 ounces.
You're good. Almost 450 grams. So a 16-ounce sinker is about the same weight as this. Okay? This is about the exact same weight. So when this falls, because this has less drag, right? This is a pretty big thing for a tuna to eat. This is not. That's why the Eddie Bomb's being favored. And so what's going on now is people just discovered that tungsten is like stupid heavy for a considerably smaller size. For example, a 400-ish gram tungsten jig would be about this size. This is a 400-gram jig.
Density.
It's considerably more dense. A smaller bait will get bit. It's easy prey for these animals, right? Tungsten jigs are, look them up on prices. But until someone figures out how to do it, the Eddie Bomb is a good option as well. The thing about it though, is that you need to use a through wire sinker. If you're not using a through wire sinker, pass that around. Show them that corner, bottom corner. It will bend on a big fish. These fish are so strong. You've pulled on them. How many people have not pulled on a tuna? Show of hands. Don't be humble, it's okay. You haven't pulled on a tuna.
It's pulled out. I think it's
Look
pulled
at the
out.
bottom. See that?
No.
So
So that
they're
stayed
strong.
on because it went through. It's all this went through, or not?
It banged because it was on a fish.
Right, but it goes through, so it's still held.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
No. That's not a through wire. A through wire won't bend. A through wire will stay solid like this. Will stay with the eyelets.
Is that what makes them so expensive?
Yep. Remember, if you're gonna bring tackle down to San Diego, guys, make sure you get it ahead of time. Because if you get it there, it's Disneyland. And those Mickey Mouse ears make you look kind of expensive. This jig at Fisherman's Landing, because I got conned into buying the candy cane, was $60. Before the hooks. $17. I'm happy because I caught a fish on it. One fish. That's worth it.
It's a good jig.
Tackle shop, 21. Hooks, 8. What was $75 in San Diego is $27.99 at Bob Sands. Disneyland. Okay? On the boat, mega Disneyland. On the ride, Disneyland. You're the picture after. That's a better example. Okay? Anyone have any questions? Comments, concerns? Everyone ready to go fishing?
Yeah.
Yeah.